You're listening to Dan and Sarah on Afternoon Edition on 5 Live. After 3 o'clock today, we'll be looking ahead to 2035. What might it be like? We shall discuss that after 3, but right now it's time for yet another guest.
A stratospheric success story, even by our standards on this programme. In 6 years, Adam Lambert went from runner-up on American Idol to the new frontman of Queen. He sold 2.5 million albums and 5 million singles worldwide. He has a new album out, The Original High. It's lovely to talk to you, Adam. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You say this one's a very personal album for you. What were the influences behind the tracks on this one?
You know, I think in the past I was known for doing more camp, kind of over-the-top type of productions and songs. And on this album, we wanted to kind of bring it down to earth and make it a bit more intimate than some of the stuff I've done in the past. It has a melancholy to it. And yet at the same time, there is tempo and there is music that makes you move, but it's very emotional.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned camp there because Simon Cowell, of course, memorably in your very first audition, we were watching it back this morning, said he thought you were maybe a little bit too theatrical, darling.
Yes.
He wasn't impressed, Adam, was he?
He was skeptical for sure. The Cowell was scowling, that was for sure. He was giving me the squint, you know.
He changed his tune though, right? Massively.
He did, yeah. I think I won him over. I remember during that audition, I kind of just stared at him for a while because I thought, well, I'm going to stare him down and just show him that I'm not scared of him and that I get it. It's all good fun. It's all TV. It's all entertainment. And I think he could tell that I was up for a good adventure.
Yeah, because Randy Jackson, who was on the other end of the panel, he looked at you and he was far more enthusiastic and he said, I think you're what the music industry needs at the moment.
Oh, they were so nice. So nice to me.
But you didn't really strike me, to be honest, even back then, Adam, as somebody who was easily fazed by being in that kind of situation. And I know that you started out going to university, you were there for 5 weeks and you left and you went to LA.
5 whole weeks.
Because you knew what you wanted to do. You were driven.
Yeah. And, I think, I did a lot of musical theater and other types of, entertainment jobs throughout my 20s before being on Idol. So it thickened my skin a lot. You deal with rejection, week to week, any audition you go to. So I knew that the Idol audition was a big deal and a big moment, but I knew that I could handle it, I
want to talk to you lots more about American Idol and various different shows of that kind and how much life they've got left in them or not, as some might say. To go back, though, to The Original High, how much of the album did you write yourself on this one?
I co-wrote on a lot of the songs. It's definitely a team effort. I work best that way creatively. I like being, in a room with other creative people and throwing the ball back and forth, and everybody, 2 to 3, 4 people have an opinion, and we kind of we push ahead and we make for the best song. And it's not really about ego and, I'm in charge and my idea is more important, but more of let's make the song the best it can be.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because that was always Queen's philosophy too.
A
democracy.
Yeah, for sure. And with the Swedish team that I put the album together with, I mean, they're very relaxed and they're very down to earth. Max Martin and Shellback are an incredible duo of producers. And they put me in with a group of young writers and beat makers called the Wolf Cousins in Stockholm for 2 months. And I spent 2 months out there only working on this album. So it was really good for me to focus and sort of experiment with different demos, different song ideas and styles. And that's how we sort of zeroed in on the sound of The Original High. And
to me, it definitely does have a very European sound. Would you like to have a little listen?
Yeah,
go on
sure.
Then. This is Another Lonely Night, your latest single.
Alone in my side, another day, another lonely night. Don't wanna throw away another lonely life.
Another Lonely Night. Adam Lambert on 5 Live. Dan Walker and Sarah Brett with you until 4. Adam, great sound to that track. It really surprised me actually when the beats kicked in. I didn't expect it to be that kind of tune. What was inspiring you at that time? Were you just really loving the vibe that these producers were giving to you?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And like I said, I spent 2 months in Sweden and I had a lovely time with everybody there, but I didn't really have much of a social life, because I'm not from there. So, of course, I made friendships with the people I was writing with, but there was a lot of time spent alone. And I think it was good for me. It was good for me for inspiration and just sort of center myself and reflect and journal. And that song, a lot of people think, oh, if you're successful and a celebrity and a pop star or whatever, you have it made. Everything's figured out for you. And I'm very, very happy with my career and I put a lot of time and energy into it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your personal life is all squared away. So I'm single and I get lonely just like anybody else.
Yeah, I was going to say, so that being on your own in Sweden then was a bit of time of personal reflection for you.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I realized in kind of writing things down and looking at my life over the past 15 years in Hollywood and trying to look ahead at the same time is that, I don't have all the answers and I don't know if I ever will. And I wanted to write music that felt universal and personal at the same time. And I wanted songs that really dug into real issues, real things that people go through, in trying to figure out what they want out of their lives and what their purpose is.
And you're not there yet. You've said you're like, I'm 33, but I'm quite comfortable with the fact that I haven't got a clue what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah. And I, luckily, like I said, my professional life is in a really nice space. But when it comes to the matters of the heart, I'm just as clueless as anybody else.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Lambert is looking for love. If you want to text in, I highly doubt that it will end in happiness, but you can if you like.
And that's the other paradox here is that, yes, of course, I would love to be in love again. I have a lot to give, but I'm in one city at a time, like 5 days, 5 days here, 5 days there. I'm like, well, how on earth am I going to date anyway? I don't even know.
Somebody's going to have to be quite tolerant, aren't they?
Yeah.
Or quite patient.
Exactly.
Are you a bit of hassle?
Yeah, or they need to be like an airline pilot at this point. I don't really know what else.
To be able to get you around, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Can we talk to you a bit about Queen as well?
Please,
take us back to that New Year's Eve gig in London and the reaction to that. What was that like? And were you nervous before you stepped up to that?
With Queen, what's so great is that, we've been working together now for about 4 years. Mm-hmm. And when it all started, right after I met them, American Idol, we made the connection. There was definitely sort of like, we all recognized that it was a good match. Mm. And then when I first started doing a couple shows here and there, in the beginning, I was really intimidated by all that. Obviously the legacy of Freddie Mercury, I was very scared of kind of disrespecting fans' memory. I didn't want to, it was a tricky thing. And so luckily with Brian and Roger, I asked a lot of questions and kind of inched my way into the situation and tried to figure out a way to perform these songs and to bring them to life in a way that reminded people of Freddie and sort of celebrated him and sort of didn't step on the toes of their memories of him, but in fact just made the songs come alive again.
You must be very happy then, Adam, with the reaction to not just that gig, but that one in particular. I mean, the papers the next day were all praising the fact that you weren't doing those things you were trying not to do.
Yeah, and like I was saying, I had some practice. We've now been doing shows together for 4 years. So after a year or so of working on and off, it's definitely become more and more of like an instinctual thing, and I'm not having to think so hard. So by the time we got to the BBC New Year's show, it was like, okay, we're in a sweet spot right now. We've done a bunch of shows. We know each other. We have a great relationship on stage. Let's have fun.
Let's listen to it. This is you with Queen from last year's New Year's Eve concert for the BBC. Whose decision was it to hold that note on Ecstasy?
Oh, I love to milk a moment. And that was the first song, so the adrenaline is usually really high on the first song. You come out on stage, you're like, okay, here we go.
I didn't doubt your vocal ability for a moment, having sort of seen your career develop. And even though Freddie Mercury has the most devastatingly versatile voice we've seen, probably.
Oh, he's amazing. He was incredible.
But what I wondered was whether or not you were going to try and emulate his on-stage theatricals. Did you think about that, or was it really just about getting across the vocal performance for you?
Well, I'm crazy. I come from the musical theater. I've always liked broad performing, being kind of over the top. And so I think that there's a kinship there. I think I understand sort of his love for that and what he wanted to communicate to the audience and that joy of kind of just being camp and ridiculous. So I didn't ever really sit and look at him and go, oh, what exactly is he doing? Let me do exactly that. But it was more, let me be in the spirit of Freddie. Freddie would have enjoyed performing the song in this manner, so I'm going to go for it this way.
Kath in Newcastle, Adam's got in contact. She says, please can you tell Adam that my 6-year-old watched the recording of that New Year's Eve conference from the BBC every night before bed for 6 months. He's now a massive Queen fan and loves Adam as well.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So you see, it was a significant moment. Do you sometimes think that when you're up stage there with Queen and Brian May and everyone else, do you have a little look round and think, how on earth did this happen?
It is surreal, and still to this day, now, even though I said it's gotten much more comfortable, it's, I have moments. We were at Rock in Rio a couple months ago down in Brazil.
Yeah, which is a huge kind of homecoming
huge,
for them.
Huge, yeah. 85,000 people in the audience. I mean, it was insane. And, they basically kicked off Rock in Rio way back in the day in the 80s, so it was a big full circle. And for me, it was sort of, holy cow, how did I get here?
And now you and they will be headlining the Isle of Wight Festival, which seems like another kind of a natural progression for them. You think of Dylan, you think of Hendrix, etc. How excited are you about that? It's
really, it's a very, I always say it's a very symbiotic situation with them, because they've been very kind in saying, oh, we couldn't do this with anybody else. But I keep saying, yeah, but the gift that you guys have given me is unbelievable. I mean, the opportunities that have come from getting to share the stage with Brian and Roger have been immeasurable. I mean, these festivals, that I might not otherwise be a part of, now I have these under my belt, and I get to meet new fans this way. I get to have these experiences, so I'm very thankful.
Brian May was also, Adam, asked about the possibility of new music with Queen, and he said, I'm open to anything, which is, he's covering all the bases there. Is that something that might be a possibility?
Who knows? I think that's, at this point, there's no point in kind of, saying no, because we never know what the future holds. I've always said in my mind, if we were to record something brand new together, I don't know if I would call that Queen, because to me, Queen is, their recordings, that's Freddie and John Deacon and Brian May and Roger Taylor. That to me is Queen. So I don't think we would want to try to re-record anything that they'd already released. That would seem kind of strange. And if we did something new, would we call ourselves Queen, or would we call ourselves something else? I don't know.
Let's talk a little bit about talent shows. I was mentioning earlier that I can't even remember who won American Idol the year that you came second, which is probably terribly rude, and they're probably hugely famous. but don't spoil my ignorance. But you obviously have had a huge success off the back of it. Not everybody does. What would be your advice to young singers who are considering going on to a reality show?
It is tricky. Who knows? And the business has changed a lot, even in 6 years. Things have shifted, and the reality TV show format, at least in the United States, isn't quite as. It's not connecting the same way with the music industry as it once was, and it's tricky. I think it's kind of a case-by-case thing. I think that if you can generate enough attention and hype off of your appearance on the show, and figure out how to get a great team around you to help you leverage it into a career, go for it. But it is I think the show itself is actually the easiest part, because it's all self-contained. Once you get off of the show, then it's sort of, flying by the seat of your pants.
Sure, but aren't the expectations created by the show part of what you then have to deal with when you come off the back of it, realising that the real world of the music industry isn't quite like the little bubble that you were in?
It's entirely different, yeah. And that's what I was saying. I think being on the show is actually, it's all kind of right in front of you and done for you. It's very simple. And there's so many other factors that people don't take into account. The radio world is a very specific thing, and the music business is a business. So it's not just a TV show anymore.
And how does it stay current, Adam? I mean, I don't know how much you know. In this country, there's a lot written about the fact that X Factor now feels a little bit tired, and the BBC used to have a big show called The Voice, which is now probably going to go to ITV for next year, which is a huge show in China and many other countries around the world. But there's almost an expectation that something has to change, something needs to be different to keep it vibrant, to keep it new.
I would agree with that. I think that's part of maybe some of the waning attention that the American shows have been getting, is that it's the same formula over and over again, and the audience kind of knows it now. And audiences aren't stupid. They like what they like. And when a new show comes out with a new format, it grabs people's attention. So, and also I think a big part of it is the contestants. I think that these shows have been out for a while now. People know what to expect when they audition for the show, and certain people aren't auditioning, and then certain people are. And I think it's up to the show to really try to find real captivating talent.
Can Simon Cowell do that, Adam?
He's definitely skilled. I mean, he definitely has quite a track record. He knows what works.
They're very diplomatic, though. Does he still
does.
know
I mean,
what
but he does.
works?
Well, he does. I mean, look at like a group like One Direction. I mean, they've broken
Yeah.
tons of records.
That's true.
They're a great pop group.
Adam, you were the first pop artist to be openly out and launch a career on a major label in the US. Do you think that you've helped make way for more openly gay artists, or are you kind of just sick that your sexuality's still a big deal in 2015?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely think it's calming down a little bit. You know, it doesn't seem to be so sensationalized like it was 6 years ago, which I think is good because it doesn't really matter when you think about it. I think maybe over here you guys have gotten a bit of a head start on not making it a big deal. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of crazy because I didn't realize that was the case when my last album, Trespassing, went to #1 on the Billboard 200. Someone told me, "Oh, you're the first artist to have this happen that's been out," and I had no idea that was the case, and it kind of struck me as kind of crazy. I don't know. You know, I hope that in the future, maybe someone says to me, "Hey, you helped me." I don't think of myself as any sort of like, I don't know, pioneer or anything. I think I'm just a guy that wanted to sing and sell albums and do concerts.
It is more difficult, though, isn't it, maybe in the music industry than in other areas of the creative arts? And you've said you're a post-gay man working in a pre-gay industry.
Yeah, the music industry is sort of the last one to come around, it feels like, out of all of them. You know, I started in theater for years, and in the theater community, obviously, like, almost all the guys are gay, or more than half. And, and then, the film and TV world has definitely been doing a lot of progressive work in certain, character developments, certain actors playing non-traditional roles and sort of changing people's perception of what gay is or isn't. And I think they've done an amazing job of opening people's minds. I think we're getting there with the music industry. I think it's a slow, steady move forward. I see it happening.
Have you had to face any discrimination on your way up through the music industry?
I don't think it's been anything that's been super dramatic or, where you could definitely pinpoint it or underline it as, oh, I'm being discriminated against. But I'm sure it's played a part. Not in the sense that people in the industry necessarily are homophobic themselves, but I think what they worry about in some cases is this marketable? Is this commercial? Is there an audience for somebody like this? And there is a bit of doubt and fear when it comes to that because, it's business, it's money. But I think that what we've seen, and I think record label executives are starting to kind of come around to the idea that young people that buy pop music, they don't mind. It's not an issue for them. They're open to it. They like it. They've figured it out in their heads. So I think if the labels see that there's money to be made, they're ready to go.
When we were watching that video of you on American Idol, the first one, because you were working in Wicked, weren't you, at the time that you went on American Idol?
Yeah.
Do you still hang out with any of those guys, and what do they think of the success you've had since then?
I made a lot of really great friends when I was in that production. I did a couple different runs of it over the course of 5 years. So I have a couple close friends, still from that. And they, it's great. It's actually really wonderful that I still have those friends in my life. And they still treat me the same. They don't treat me. There's no special treatment with those guys.
Is that something you'd like to go back to?
Maybe someday. I can't rule it out. I mean, I'm sure there'll come a time somewhere in the future where it's the right show at the right moment. I think right now I'm really enjoying just being myself and creating my own music and my own shows. But you never know.
A couple of times you've said, the music industry sees that there's money to be made. It's a business after all. And I just kind of get the impression that while you accept that as being the reality, you might find it a little bit soul-destroying at times.
There's definitely been moments where I've been frustrated, for sure. And there've been moments where, if I really think about it, I go, well, I'm sure that me being openly gay is a factor in this, that, or the other thing. But at the same time, it's, I can't change who I am, and I won't change who I am. I'm very, very comfortable in my skin. I like who I am, and I'm just doing the best I can do. So what else is there?
The money side of it, I guess, obviously it's massively important to everybody, but do you ever think that maybe there'd be a time where you would just take yourself out of it completely and just do a creative thing aside from the massive record label stuff,
Who knows? Yeah, I mean, I think that in my life there will be many chapters, and I hope that there are lots of different projects. I love being involved in many different things, and I think that I have a lot that I'm going to end up doing. So, yeah.
There's been a whole book of chapters already.
Yeah.
And seeing as you've been doing your journal lately, I look forward to reading your memoirs coming
Thank you
up.
so much.
Adam Lambert, thanks a million for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. After 3, what?
My heart is a ghost town. My heart is a ghost town.